Hello and welcome to the third video tutorial. In the last video we exported a file from 3Dem as a WRL file, and that file is on my desktop right now. So I'm going to take this file and drag it into an open session of Rhino. It doesn't matter what window I put it in, but I want to make sure that I have import files selected. And my model is now in Rhino. To go over the navigation quickly here, to zoom in and out in the perspective viewport, which is this viewport right here on the top right, I'm going to use my mouse wheel to scroll in and out. To rotate, I can use the right mouse button while I drag the mouse. And to pan, I would simply use Shift and the right mouse button at the same time while dragging the mouse. You'll also notice that as I do rotate, I have a world axis here, which is a X, Y, and Z. So X direction, Y direction, and the Z, which represents up and down. So as I rotate around, now the Z is actually pointing downwards. So I'm actually looking at something from the bottom. Okay. These other viewports are plan views, which means that there's no perspective, everything is flat, and you can't rotate in these three viewports down here, top, front, and right. So you can still pan, and you pan by using the right mouse button and dragging, and you can still zoom by using the mouse wheel, like this. So I can do that for any one of these viewports. Sometimes your model might be off of center a little bit. Actually, let me just undo that for a second. Let's say I'm over here like this. When I go to rotate, I'm not rotating around my object any longer. I'm rotating around a point somewhere around here. An easy way to rotate around something that you want is to select it first. And to select something, you simply left-click on it. So once it's selected, it turns yellow. To deselect something, just left-click off of that object into empty space and it'll deselect. So I'm going to select this object and I'm going to go up here, and zoom selected, which is a left click on this icon, will zoom whatever I had selected and make that the center of my rotation. So I'm now rotating just around that object. Another useful command is to get everything back to a default view. So let's say I have a situation like this. I might not even see my objects at all, and I want to go back to a situation where I can see what's going on. So in a situation like this, rather than trying to fish for everything and find it, I can come up here right next to the car icon, and I'm going to right click for default viewports. And doing that will bring everything in the scene within view in all the viewports at the same time. So to delete an object, let's say I want to delete this light bulb, for instance, I can select it, and now that it's selected, I'm going to delete it using the delete on my keyboard. And that was pretty simple. The next thing that we want to do is in the right viewport. Right now, if you look at this situation, this model is standing on end, and in fact, from the top view, what I'm looking at here is essentially what I would look at if I were looking from the top down in perspective view. The front view is giving me this view like this, and the right view down here is actually looking at the model like that. So what I want to do is bring this model, I want to rotate it down like this along this edge essentially. So I've zoomed out just a little bit in the right viewport so I can see the whole model more easily, and I'm going to go to transform and start the rotate command. And as I do this, you'll notice where it has the command up here, as soon as I start this, that changes, and it now says select objects to rotate. So I know that I'm in a command right now because it's asking me to do something. If I made a mistake and I wanted to just abort out of this, I could just press escape on my keyboard and it goes back to just being command again. So I'm out of that command now. So I'm going to go back in and rotate, select objects to rotate. It's important that you do this in the right viewport, because the rotate command, it's sensitive to which of these viewports you execute the command in. So I'm going to select the terrain in this viewport, press enter when done. So I'm going to press enter on my keyboard, and now it's asking me for the center of rotation. I could just left click and drop a point for the center of rotation, or I can just as easily type 0. And 0 is essentially the origin in this grid. So it's where this red line and the green line that's normally here, you can't see because the model is on it, but that's where those two meet. That's X and Y 0. So I've defined that as my origin, and now it's asking me for angle or first reference point. I'm going to hold down my shift key, and doing that constrains my movement to 90 degrees. Without that, I'm sort of free to move anywhere. So I'm going to just hit the shift, and want to make sure that my circle isn't bigger than the viewport itself, so keep it fairly small. And now I'm going to left click to start the rotation. And now it's asking me for a second reference point, so I'm just going to move the cursor up. And again, I have my shift key pressed the whole time while I'm doing this. If I release my shift key, I could be dropping this anywhere, and I want to make sure that this is horizontal. So with the shift key down, I'm happy with the position now. It's going across, looks good. I'm going to left click to end the command. And now I have the terrain located the way I want. If I wanted to undo this or any other command, it's simply Control Z. So that just took me back to the previous state. And to redo something, it's Control Y. So if you ever make a mistake, you can always just undo it. You can also undo up here and redo up here as well. It's a left or a right click. Now you'll notice that this model is quite dark right now when I'm zoomed out. There's a lot of information here. And so what I want to do is be able to see this information from a distance, and I'm just going to go over quickly the different ways to visualize something. So at the very top of this viewport title, if I right click on this, right now I'm in shaded view. If I switch to wireframe view, I'm just going to left click on that. It's now a wireframe view, so I'm not seeing the surface, but I'm seeing the structure of it essentially. And wireframe view doesn't really help when I'm zoomed out either. So I'm going to go back in, I'm going to go to rendered view, and rendered view does help a lot when I'm looking at something from a distance. So you can do the same thing in any one of these viewports. So for the top view, again, if I right click and go to rendered, it now gives me a rendered view. One last thing that we want to do in this tutorial is fix this model. Right now, there's the structure of the model doesn't quite match up with the image of the model itself. There's an anomaly going on here, and you can sort of see it. You can see this darker area here. So to get these things to match, I'm going to run a command, and I'm going to do that by clicking in the command area and type rebuild mesh normals. And as soon as I see that appear, I can just hit enter to start that command, and it says select meshes to rebuild. I'm going to select the mesh and press enter when done, and there, that looks a lot better now. So that's the end of this tutorial. I'll see you at the next one. Thanks.